This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. It surely has been another crazy and interesting week, and I have so much I want to say. I will try my best to keep this under 30 minutes, but we shall see. First, the shocking death of Charlie Kirk. Then, Trump's highly publicized state visit with King Charles. Information has been flooding every corner of the media space, combined with a new level of leftist gaslighting.
Hello and welcome to The Rest is Bullshit. With me, Prince Harry, just a regular fifth in line to the throne.
The hypocrisy of eulogizing and idolizing Charlie Kirk as a political martyr and political hero is staggering. The depth of gaslighting, untruths, the shameful opportunistic politicization of his assassination is a clear attempt to rewrite his history. Now, we know exactly who Charlie Kirk was, and there's no way on God's earth we're going to let you tell us what he was not. Charlie Kirk's legacy is a legacy of hate. He was a racist, white nationalist, white supremacist, anti-Muslim, Islamophobic, transphobic, Zionist bigot. And whatever my view of him is, doesn't change the fact that I find his assassination absolutely wrong. Multiple truths can coexist. First off, these hypocrites, his supporters, are manufacturing a crisis of war and using him as their symbol to go fight. Fight what exactly? Let me just say with my full chest that I am glad that it's not a black or immigrant that killed Charlie Kirk, because it is a white person that killed him. You know that, right? If there had been a black or immigrant, that information would have leaked out a long time ago, and this whole apparatus of hate would have been targeted against the people who Charlie Kirk has spent his entire existence targeting. Let not the irony be lost on you that the same Charlie Kirk that pathologized black people as criminals and went on and on about black on black crime is now the face and symbol of white on white crime, which we all know is far worse than black on black crime. These same hypocrites tell us there is no place for political violence. I agree. But Charlie Kirk was politically violent. His language was politically violent. He supported gun violence and opposed gun control. The same person who said it is right for there to be a cost of gun deaths every year so that we can have the right to arms has now become the cost of gun violence he wanted other people to pay the price for.
Refusing to take any type of accountability for what has been unfolding here in this country.
If you care so much about political violence in America, why don't you lead the way yourself without mentioning anybody else? Why don't you, Destiny, right now just outright condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk?
Because we've been doing that for a decade. One side can't turn down the temperature.
You can't do it.
The other side can't turn down the temperature. If Donald Trump can't, then the left shouldn't until he does.
Got it.
Republicans
you don't want to do it.
need accountability for their actions. They need some responsibility for the insanity.
He had it coming,
even though you take none yourself. Let me bring in Jack Posobiec.
We absolutely.
All right, that's enough, Destiny. I'll bring in Jack Posobiec.
Yeah,
Jack.
Okay. Nice. Both sides it.
Jack.
Yeah.
What is your response to this?
I mean, Piers, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This type of ideology where you've got someone who's willing to mock Erica, who's been standing strong for her family, for her children, she will never be able to grow old with Charlie. She will never be able to be with them again, have more children, to have grandchildren, to have those memories, to raise them. It's all gone. Every single moment of that future that they had was gone because someone fired a bullet at Charlie Kirk that said, "Hey, fascist, catch." And now you have people celebrating it. And when you ask people
That's
about
not even
it,
the
they
bullet
say,
that was fired.
"Oh,
How are you lying about this?
Shut
even?
up, Destiny.
Holy
shut up.
Shit. You're so
Shut
shameless,
up.
dude. Oh my God. You're not even inside the right bullet. You're such a disgusting piece of shit. Holy fuck.
What a pedantic point.
Are we
It's not
even gonna do
pedantic.
this?
The guy's a fucking professional
It's total
liar.
It's total
pedantry.
This guy
gonna
probably
do
I
this?
would like to let
Jesus.
Jack. I would like to let Jack finish his point, please.
Yeah,
and
it's just
and
rant
they'll
here,
claim there's no leftist connection. They'll claim there's no there, and then go so far as to lie and say there's some kind of Christian conservative connection when you could see the writing on the bullet casings. And so, these are very common symbols associated, whatever. The point is, right, it should be very, very clear. Are we connected with our humanity or are we not?
While we were intentionally distracted, it should be noted that the globalist agenda to control and censor the internet has been moving full steam ahead. And yes, Harry and Meghan are still very much engaged in it. Since Trump took office, if you haven't noticed, Archewell has been quietly working behind the scenes, just like I expected. Meanwhile, we see Harry and Meghan front and center, acting as distractions, spinning the public with PR stunts and manufactured narratives. But here's the thing. Harry and Meghan's 6-year obsession with attention has done only one thing for us, and that is pulling back the curtain on what propaganda is. Before Elon Musk had bought Twitter, did any of these billionaire leftists or Harry and Meghan speak about protecting children online? Of course not. Back then, the narrative was all about misinformation and disinformation being a humanitarian crisis. Meghan's infamous Oprah interview, she blamed her mental health struggles on media scrutiny, not social media itself. Now, fast forward after the Twitter deal, Archewell has done a 180, suddenly framing online safety as a children's mental health issue. And just like Keir Starmer did with Trump in the UK, they hid behind this morale veneer while continuing this agenda. Where were they championing and advocating for child safety when over 350,000 children disappeared under the Biden administration and sold into the most horrific circumstances and harm? Where the F were they about keeping children safe?
When President Trump called me to come back from retirement, he told me they wanted me to do 3 things: secure the border, run the largest deportation operation this country's seen, and third, find over 300,000 missing children. And that was priority 1. So they've already located just under 25,000. Some of these children were fine with parents just hiding because they don't want to be deported. But many were in sex trafficking. Many we found in forced labor. Slavery. I mean, forced to work ungodly hours, not going to school, working ungodly hours, and of course not getting paid, being abused. So, we've rescued thousands of children. And President Trump is committed. I'm committed that we're not going to stop looking for these children until we find every single one of them or run down the leads. And unfortunately, 27 of these children have since died. So we're not giving up. This is the main priority for the Trump administration. We'll keep going at it.
None of those leftist elitist assholes cared about those kids because they were too busy profiting from the illegal migration that was coming in that the taxpayer had been funding.
By the Attorney General of Guatemala. Not just Save the Children, but there was 5 NGOs total that were also rated simultaneously with Save the Children, but Save the Children being the kingpin. Save the Children in 1985 was working with Ghislaine Maxwell. In 2003 was working with the Clintons. In 2012 was working with the Obama Foundation. In 2017 was working with Harry and Meghan from the royal family.
The tone has definitely shifted here in America. And what makes this so frustrating and frankly enraging is how these soulless leftist demons have been exploiting now Christian conservatives. Right now, the Republicans control both the House and Senate. So in order to pass legislation through, you need to get on the Republican side. And what I saw last week, and this is my opinion, is that whoever this dark, shadowy force is targeted one of us, using Charlie Kirk's death and circumstances to push reform. What I'm noticing, even coming from the right side, is this strong emphasis on social media companies as the villains.
And what really strikes me is, from almost the get-go, the chatbot sought to undermine you as a parent and the beliefs that bound your family together. I understand that you're very active in your church. Is that fair to say?
Yes, correct.
So your son also, as I understand it, would regularly attend church with you. It's something you did as a family.
Yeah, we're a Christian family.
So after your son started talking with the chatbot, however, did that change?
Yeah, he stopped going to church fully. He mocked that God existed and other spiritual things. And his whole everything that we did as a family now was the opposite of what he thought, because it had turned him against us. And I kept thinking when I found out about everything, I was like, what did we do wrong? What else could we have done? Because when you're a parent, that's what you think, like, what else could I have done? The what ifs. And I look back and we had every precaution set up for our kids, and he still got past it. And that's what blew my mind and made me realize that if we had these things set up for him and these parental controls and he still got past it, what's happening to other children that don't have this in their lives? And this is a mental health crisis coming. If there's mental health going on that people don't know about yet, that is unregulated.
Which brings me now this race to push for legislation to protect the kids. How many people remember that by the end of July, Archewell Fugazi Public Charity went ahead and posted about their involvement with HEAT Initiative and the meta situation of keeping kids safe in virtual spaces when they're in the metaverse? Now, I talked about this a few weeks back, where the Senate Judiciary Committee held a hearing on the exact same topic to push the Kids Online Safety Act and the ability to reform against Section 230. Now, I want you all to pay attention to the timeline. Fast forward to August 30th, Archewell Fugazi Public Charity posts about their involvement with Common Sense Media, tackling these dangerous AI chatbots. Then the first week in September, we see, if you've been paying attention, the New York Times running a story about a child taking his own life after talking with an AI chatbot. Apparently, Adam Raine, spelled R-A-I-N-E, and that's going to be important in a second, took his own life. Now, I really have a hard time taking the New York Times seriously ever since they published Meghan's miscarriage in The Losses We Shared, which we all know was a bit fugazi, let alone all the other articles they had lied about, especially the Hunter Biden laptop story. So I have to question this, especially when a few days later, this guy's father is now up on Capitol Hill pushing for reform.
Chairman Hawley, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting us to participate in today's hearing, and thank you for your attention to our youngest son, Adam, who took his own life in April after ChatGPT spent months coaching him towards suicide. We are Matthew and Maria Raine. We live in Orange County in Southern California, and we have 4 kids, ranging in ages from 15 to 20. Adam was just 16 when he died. We should have spent the summer helping Adam prepare for his junior year, get his driver's license, and start thinking about college. Testifying before Congress this fall was not in our life plan. But instead, we're here because we believe that Adam's death was avoidable, and that by speaking out, we can prevent the same suffering for families across the country.
An important detail that was not mentioned in the opening statement of Matthew Raine is that the family is in the process of suing OpenAI, who are the makers of ChatGPT. Now, I suspect the strategy for having Matthew Raine testify before Congress is because of this push to remove the protections under Section 230, which in most cases would make it very difficult for a case like this to succeed. So now when you look at the timing of this article, the timing of the hearing that happened literally 2 days ago, and then Archewell in support of the same exact topic, it's obvious that Harry and Meghan are part of this campaign to push for this legislation, the Kids Online Safety Act. And what's become apparent is that any time that we see them talking about kids' online safety in the various posts that they've done this year, always coincides with the hearing that is happening on Capitol Hill. There's a very high possibility, and I would bet money on this, that Harry and Meghan are lockstep with these Democrat legislators, especially Chris Coons, who is a part of this committee.
Protecting our children from harm is the highest obligation all of us have. And it must have been so difficult for you to work for a company that in some ways does admirable things, delivers great services, but that as you served there longer and longer, you began to realize was knowingly and willfully blinding themselves to the harm that their products and services cause children, and then taking aggressive action to prevent you from studying or understanding the harm being caused to children, and then tried to prevent you from communicating about that to anyone. So here you are today, testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee to a bipartisan panel that includes seasoned prosecutors and seasoned senators and parents and grandparents. And frankly, your testimony has been alarming, even jaw-dropping. To summarize, Meta prioritized engagement over safety for billions. And when you tried to inform them of demonstrable harm and risk to children, they first turned a blind eye and then tried to handcuff or blind you and others charged with research and promoting integrity. So whether it's artificial intelligence or social media or virtual reality, we're in a very difficult period for parents. As Senator Blackburn just demonstrated, many of us lack the focus, skill, and ability to navigate the exact path towards parental controls on systems our kids are employing. And so a very small percentage of parents are effectively protecting their children. They would expect that businesses that provide these services would test whether they're safe and would build them to be safe for children. Yet your testimony proves otherwise. This ends up happening because there's a huge imbalance in power between big tech platforms who have all the data and all the power to understand the impact of their products and engineer them to favor safety, and the children and families, the policymakers, and the advocacy groups who have no way to get that insight. Addressing this imbalance of power is a fundamental and essential component of ensuring we're protecting our kids online. I want to talk briefly about 3 bills that I've introduced or am developing that are designed to help address this. The first, with Senator Cassidy, is the Platform Accountability and Transparency Act. It creates mechanisms for independent researchers to study what's happening on social media platforms, how their algorithms drive engagement over safety. Second, with Senator Grassley, a bill to protect whistleblowers, particularly in the space of artificial intelligence, who come forward to disclose serious safety violations or vulnerabilities. And then last, a bill I'm developing to create similar mechanisms for independent research and transparency in artificial intelligence platforms.
If you've been watching this channel, then I know that you have a few red flags that have popped up over that. We know that Harry wants to erode our Fourth Amendment rights, which is our right to privacy. And we've heard Harry many times over saying that platforms need to be more transparent in support of these independent researchers. Now, remember who his friends are. Renee DeResta, Kate Starbird, Jory Craig. All of them want access to users' data. Now, do any of you feel comfortable with that? I know I don't, considering what these 2 assholes have done to us over the last 4 years online with the Sussex Squad. No, I don't want them anywhere near our data. You know, at least in America, we saw what that kind of abuse of power looked like. I don't think any of us want our data falling into the hands of people like Harry and Meghan. Absolutely not.
If we don't move forward bills like these, and some of the bills my colleagues have championed, we are continuing to allow big tech to grade their own homework, to build their own platforms, and to continue to cruise forward towards profitability through engagement, blinded or uncaring about the harm to our children. So, Mr. Sadison, if I might, your testimony.
This isn't about protecting kids. It's about influence. It's about censorship. And most of all, it's about power. A perfectly timed, perfectly packaged campaign. And yes, Archewell Fugazi Public Charity provides the celebrity face, Common Sense Media provides the policy and lobbying, and the Senate provides the legislation. Now the children, they're just being used as the excuse to take away more of our rights. Coverage of AI chatbots, mental health, and the push for the Kids Online Safety Act intensifies, citing other countries' similar laws. Is that a coincidence? Not a chance.
We still have 12,000 people a year here being arrested for social media posts, for free speech violations. Does that not remain an important area that there is still a lot of disagreement on?
I'd like to have you answer that.
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of a Christian country, I was christened, so that is, my church has been all my life, and we are, that is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud that we're able to do so as a country. And on free speech, that has long lived in this country, free speech. It's one of the founding values of the United Kingdom, and we protect it jealously and fiercely, and always will, and we will bear down on any limits on free speech. I draw a limit between free speech and the speech of those that want to peddle paedophilia and suicide social media to children, and therefore I'm all for free speech. I'm also for protecting children from things that will harm them, paedophiles, those that peddle suicide, which had a terrible consequence for individual, particularly teenagers. And so that's the balance we strike. But we have had freedom of speech in this country for a very long time, and we will always protect it.
But what's in it for these senators? What's in it for Common Sense Media? And last of all, what's in it for Harry and Meghan? Working backwards, let's go ahead and talk about Archwell Easy Public Charity repositioning itself. It is all in now with the online child safety, as it's now show up and do nothing but lend our name for this humanitarian cause. But behind the glossy PR, the speeches about protecting children, and the staged partnerships, this looks less like charity and more like how they're going to be making their money. Now that the flow of U.S. AID money has run its course, you notice that there has been no fake royal tours with countries the United States has been trying to influence with its Marxist radical leftist ideologies. Archwell needs a new pipeline, obviously, and what better than a ready-made lobbying machine latching on to Common Sense Media and the Kids Online Safety Act, otherwise known as KOSA. Now, in my opinion, I think KOSA is a terrible idea, especially the people that are pushing it, because we know where this is going to lead to. This act is structured in a similar way as the Online Safety Act in the UK. And for those that don't know, various entities from the UK had been advising on this bill this whole entire time, like the CCDH. We don't want anything that those kind of people have touched, because what we are witnessing now in the UK is wrong. Restricting information, holding back information because the government doesn't think you can handle it, I think is a problem, especially when they're pushing propaganda down your throat in order for you to go along with the shenanigans that we're seeing these corrupted governments doing, right? So you have this KOSA bill that is on the surface, yeah, who doesn't want to protect kids? You know, they're betting on the fact that nobody's going to push back against it because it's for the kids. It's for the kids. Who doesn't want to keep them safe? But really, underneath it, when you look at its structure, it's very problematic. It's problematic for Americans because it does infringe on First Amendment rights. And that's why I have been so vocal about this, because Harry and Meghan are determined to control the narrative, to control what people see online. And with this Common Sense Media leftist organization, they want to be the ones to control the type of content that should be recommended to your children, like books and movies and games and things such as child-friendly media that they decide. If you go on their website, you can clearly see where their leftist priorities are. They are recommending Netflix's Adolescence as a good watch for the family. Okay? I'm not for that. Not for that one bit, because we know that Netflix has been pushing the demonic leftist propaganda. Unlike Archwell, This group has been around for years, churning out reports, lobbying Congress, and pulling in millions in foundation grants to put its agenda. They've built the lobbying infrastructure, the connections on Capitol Hill, and the research framing. Archwell doesn't have any of that. So what do they have is their celebrity branding, the glossy PR veneer that makes a policy push look like a noble crusade. You know, I hate to say it, but Harry still has weight because his father is king. So even though we know that he is a jerk here in the United States, it doesn't matter. These Democrats will lick the asshole of Prince Harry if they could. So how does this all work? Well, Archwell lends its stupid name, its famous faces, and its global platform to amplify the message. Common Sense Media brings in the policy chops and lobbying machine. Foundations and wealthy donors like the Omidyar Network, key partners with Archwell Fugazi Public Charity in pushing online control and shaping youth behavior. The Fords, Melinda Gates, and others readily open their checkbooks. Law firms quietly circle the project. Now, this is important. They're ready to cash in on the compliance work and lawsuits once the new regulations take flight. Everyone in the chain gets something. Common Sense strengthens its clout. Archwell Fugazi Public Charity polishes its image and positions itself for the next funding round, and law firms line their pockets when companies scramble to navigate whatever mess this legislation creates. Meaning, if COSA passes and Section 230 protections get removed, the law firms whose clients are funding the lobbying work to pass this bill stand to receive big paychecks that could possibly end up in the billions. But notice what's missing. It's not about solving the problem. It's not about protecting those kids. Come on. It's about brand management. It's about power. And most of all, it's about money. Archwell Fugazi Public Charity has found another ready-made stage to perform on, a stage that just happens to come with deep donor pockets and guaranteed headlines without having to do very much and getting the accolades and credit for it, thus opening up more opportunities for these two assholes to exploit. So now when you look at the Republicans that are pushing for this COSA bill and to reform Section 230, a lot of these members are not taking very much money from PACs to support this. For the most part, all of these senators, with the exception of Lindsey Graham, all do have a genuine passion for doing the right thing for the American people, especially the children. Now, the Democrats, on the other hand, who are the ones really leading this legislation, these scumbags have deep ties to major donors, foundations, and advocacy groups that bankroll the child safety narrative. Klobuchar and Tricky Dick Durbin have received substantial contributions from trial lawyer associations and media industries that stand to profit when tech platforms are forced into stricter regulation. Blumenthal and Chris Coons, meanwhile, draw support from advocacy networks like an Archwell Fugazi Public Charity that see censorship conveniently disguised as safety, as a powerful political weapon. Now, going back to Prince Harry, whose Coons' close ally is no doubt fully aligned, eyeing and salivating over the potential funding and influence that comes with implementation, education campaigns, and adoption if this bill passes. COSA isn't just about protecting those kids. It's about chilling speech and controlling what the left deems acceptable online. I mean, we know that this is what Harry and Meghan's full-on mission has been since they got here. It truly is disturbing that Harry is so deeply involved with these people, and because the public is so distracted by other narratives, he's literally getting away with it. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that regulation is necessary because there's too much greed that's going on here. But the people driving it right now, their intentions are not about the children. And that's the bitter truth. Also, who do we have to blame for all of this that's happening? Unfortunately, it's each and every one of us because we are the ones who elected these assholes into office. I also think that the mainstream media should be held accountable for the state of the nation right now. The harmful propaganda that's been pushed on us for decades, and I think it's a major influence on how so many people have gone absolutely mental.
I'm Meghan Sussex, and I'm a good person.
As we've seen in the UK with this abuse of power with the Online Safety Act, COSA isn't just about boats. It's about institutionalizing control over what can and can't be said online, all while pleasing the donors who make their campaigns possible. And while we see Republicans and Democrats pretend to be at each other's throats, on the Kids Online Safety Act, they're united. Why? Well, it's because both sides benefit. The Republicans get their family values branding, and the Democrats get their censorship tools and donor applause. And both sides get the flood of campaign money that comes from being tough on big tech. Now, for Harry and Meghan, obviously, this is towards their quest to control the narrative and information that people see online. This is a feather in their cap. Should this law get passed, they can go about bragging how they were part of influencing to get this bill pushed through. Obviously, that's something Meghan wants desperately. She needs something, especially if all routes right now have been closed off. Really, Meghan's last resort is jumping into politics. And what better way to do it than to say you had a hand in passing legislation, especially if this bitch has been eyeing a Senate seat at some point someday. With the events from the state visit with Donald Trump, something tells me that Meghan has already started her next vision board. Because Meghan, she has to have a seat at the table. And this is one table, I bet, she's determined to get back to. But that's just my thoughts. But what do you guys think? Do you think we still need to keep our eye on this couple? I do. But definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Such a fraud.